Hello everyone, my name is Allison and today we're going to be talking about fairy books. So let's get to it. So I love fairy books as much as the next person, but I have very specific taste when it comes to fairy books. And yeah, I'm just gonna talk about some of my favorites, and I do have a stack of honorable mentions, which are books that don't really have fairies in them, or the fairies are they're not like the focus of the story, but they're still there. And yeah, and also books that are like fairy coded, where they're not necessarily called fairies, but they act like fairies. So yeah, and yeah, there's a big stack of books. So we're gonna get to them. Yeah, they're not in any particular order either. I just kind of threw them all in front of me, and I'm just gonna grab them and talk about them. Hopefully I can remember what these books are about, because you know me, I never remember what things are about. I just remember that I enjoyed them. Books. Alright, first stack, very obvious choice when it comes to when I think top tier fairy books, and that is the Regency Faerie series by Olivia Atwater. I've talked about this series many times, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I love that they're cozy, but the fairies are also very spooky at times. I love a stupid fairy. Like, I love when fairy logic is so extreme that the fairies are just dumb, if that makes sense. Dumb but still intimidating. Yeah. In Half a Soul, we're following Dora, and she has an encounter with a fairy lord when she's very young, and she's saved by her cousin. I believe they're cousins, and she comes away from that encounter with only half of her soul, and this is like the story of her trying to get that other half back, and whether or not she actually wants it. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but yeah, it's a Half a Soul. And in this one, we're following, what was her name? No, not this one. 10,000 Stitches. That's the next one. We're following Effie, and she works as a maid in this household, and she happens to meet a fairy man, and he sort of assists her with her work, and in exchange she has to do 10,000 stitches into this coat, and it's just delightful, absolutely delightful. Yeah. And in this one, we're following a character from the first book, and I won't say who it is in case you don't want spoilers or anything. And there's a murder mystery and lots of fairies, and it's fun. And all of the books, while they don't follow the same main characters, characters from like the first book do appear throughout the series, which is a delight. So yeah, it's like almost standalones, but not quite. And it's just a joy. I absolutely adore it. Okay, the next book in the stack is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. And in this one we are following Toadling. Yeah, Toadling. And she is kind of the guardian of this tower where this princess is sleeping, lying in wait. And she's just there to make sure that the princess stays asleep, because the princess, let's just say it's better if she stays asleep. And yeah, and she comes across this knight who is, I don't remember, he's heard about the curse on the tower and he's interested in breaking the curse, and Toadling just has to try and convince him not to do that. And it's a short little book. It's absolutely delightful. I loved it. Toadling is a fairy. She's like a little toad kind of fairy. And it's just a delight little story. I loved it. Okay. Next one. Well, two, because I'll talk about them together. Of course, can't talk about fairy books without talking about Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, because I have read this. Absolutely loved it. Full thoughts in my February wrap-up. But anyway, in book one, we are following Emily as she goes to... I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of the country she goes to. But she's in this country and she has to sort of befriend the locals to learn their fairy lore and stuff for the book that she's writing. And the locals are having some troubles with the fairies, and Emily is a little hesitant to help them out with it because she is a scholar. She's not really there to make friends and help people out, but spoiler alert, she does. And while she's there working on her research, her sort of academic rival shows up, sort of friend, sort of academic rival, and he kind of throws a wrench in her plans, and it's just delightful, and book two, equally delightful, if not more. The fairies are creepy, it's cozy, the characters are wonderful. I highly recommend these books if you're a fan of Howl's Moving Castle, specifically the book, and enjoy the dynamic that Howl and Sophie have in the story, because Emily and Wendell are very similar to them. I wouldn't say so similar that it's like blatantly obvious, but like similar enough where you're just like anyway, that's how I was, like Howl and Sophie. But yeah, these are so good, so good, especially book two. I was blown away by book two, honestly. But anyway, yeah, can't talk about fairy books without talking about Emily Wilde. Right, and another two books that we're going to talk about together, because they're from the same author, and I guess they're kind of companions to each other. The first one is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. These fairies, the fairies in this are so good and creepy and just like conniving, and they're so good, and it's a very intimidating book to get through. I do not recommend the audiobook, but it's worth the effort, I believe, in my opinion. I've read it twice now. We're following, it's 1806 at the start of the story, and we're following these two magicians in England, and magicians have sort of disappeared over time, and it's all about the rise of the magicians again. We're following Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and they kind of both have different ways of going about being a magician. They have different ethics and stuff like that, and it's just really fascinating and interesting. And of course there is a fairy king that gets in the way of their plans and is kind of like a dark shadow that's looming over them the whole time. I don't think he's really talked about as a king. He's called like the gentleman is how they refer to him. And there's a bit of a love story that's not really a love story, and it's good. If you're willing to put in the effort, it's good. It's got footnotes, it's dense, some of the chapters are very long, but look, it's got illustrations. So yeah, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. and companion, The Ladies of Grace Adieu, also by Susanna Clarke. This is a compilation of little fairy tales that take place in this world, and the characters do show up every once in a while, which is fun. And yeah, this is just fun little bit of fairy tale mumbo jumbo. And there's illustrations within for some of the stories. I don't know if all of them have them. Oh, there is an illustration for each story, like a whole page. And yeah, it's a delight. Yeah. Alright, so the next book is actually illustrated by the same illustrator of The Ladies of Grace Adieu, Charles Vess, and that is Honeycomb by Joanne M. Harris. This is I don't even know how to describe this. It is a bunch of individual short little fairy tales, and at first you think they have nothing in common, but as you read on, you realize that it's all part of one big overarching story, and it's just fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and like I said, it's illustrated by Charles Vess, right? Charles Vess. Let me find the color one, and they're just lovely. Not every story has an illustration, but there's enough illustrations in there to just be delightful. You know me, I love a book for grown-ups that has drawings and illustrations in it. More books for grown-ups need to have illustrations. Just because we're grown-up doesn't mean we don't like to look at pictures, okay? I couldn't possibly describe this without giving stuff away. You just have to experience it for yourself. It's a joy. I loved it. Okay, for honorable mentions, I just have 3 books in front of me. The first one, Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I can't remember if there's any actual fairies in this, but it's such just classic fairy tale feeling, and it's just really wonderful. Lots of weird, oddball stuff happening in this. I don't think there's actually any fairies in it now that I think about it, but still, we're gonna keep it known. That's why it's in the honorable mentions. But we're following Mara, or Mara, however you say it, and she's the youngest daughter of 3, and her sister has been married off to this, he's like a prince, I believe, or a king, either a prince or a king, and he's not very nice, and so Mara goes on this quest to save her sister, and it's just, you know, she has 3 impossible tasks that she has to do, very classic fairy tale coded, and it's just a wonderful adventure full of fun characters, and it was just a delight, and it was spooky and unsettling at times, but also cozy, and T. Kingfisher has a way of like just really balancing the cozy and the spooky and the unsettling, and I can't wait to read more. Not in this, because this is a standalone, not through this, but more from T. Kingfisher. Yeah, Nettle and Bone, if you're looking for a really classic fairy tale feel that's also spooky and has a lot of great characters and messages and just so good. Don't fall. Anyway, okay, moving on. Piranesi, or Piranesi, I don't know how to say this, by Susanna Clarke. Again, another Susanna Clarke. Yeah, in this one, like I said with Nettle and Bone, I don't think there's any actual fairies in it, but it's very coded. we're following Piranesi, whatever, however you say it, I'm sorry. And we're just following his day-to-day life as he explores this strange world that he's trapped in and can't seem to escape. And that's all I want to say about this, because you just have to read it. But it is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It's short. I think it's only like 250 pages. Yeah, just about 250 pages, and it really packs a punch. It was so good. I couldn't put it down. Yeah, like I said, I don't think any fairies are actually involved, or I think it's implied. I think the fairiness is implied, but very good. Very, 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 very good. All right, in the last books I'm going to talk about don't have any fairies in them, like the previous two. But they have some creatures in them that are very, very coded. And that is the elements of cadence. I can't talk. Duology by Rebecca Ross. Rebecca Ross really knows how to write a duology, guys. These are fantastic. We're following Jack. Why did I want to call him Thomas? Anyway, we're following Jack, and he's returning home after spending, I think it's 10 years away learning to be a bard. And he's returning home to this enchanted island of Cadence. That's what it's called, right? That's the actual name of the island, right? Yes. And yeah, there's a bit of magic going on there. There's lots of elemental spirits in this, which are, you know, basically fairies, and that's why they're included in this video. And there's a murder mystery, or maybe just a mystery. I don't think it's actually a murder mystery, but there's a mystery. There's these missing children, and Jack kind of works with his old nemesis, the Laird's daughter, and they have to try and figure out what's happening with these missing children. And yeah, there might be a little bit of an enemies to lovers romance, and a marriage of convenience. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but it's just so good. These as a whole is just perfection. Just perfection. So yeah, those were all of my favorite fairy books. A couple more honorable mentions would be Uprooted in Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Again, not necessarily fairies, but folklore and fairy tale stuff that kind of makes it feel like fairies. What else? Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. House of the Castle. No fairies in that, but still very fairy tale coded. The Invasion and The Call. The Call is the first one. The Call and The Invasion by I don't remember the name of the author, but I will post the covers here. Faerie, if you want scary fairies, highly recommend. They're terrifying and a good duology, and very interesting, very different than other fairies. Highly recommend. I no longer own the books because I didn't think I would ever reread them because they were so scary. But yeah, those are my fairy book recommendations. I guess that's what this was a recommendation video. If you have any fairy book recommendations, please leave a comment. I want to read more fairy books, especially if they are like 10,000 Stitches and not 10,000, Half a Soul, you know what I'm talking about. It's Regency Fairy Tales by Olivia Atwater and Emily Wilde, and like Nettle and Bone. If they're, you know, along those vibes and not so much other fairies, if you know what I mean. Anyway, we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah, thank you for watching. Leave a comment with your fairy recommendations if you have them. Yeah, I think that's it. Leave a like if you want to. Subscribe if you want to. Anyway, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna stop talking and get this lipstick off my face. Thank you for watching. Yeah, goodbye.